everyone, this is Felipe with Nation of Immigrants, where immigrants are us and we are the nation. Today I'm going to answer a question a lot of people have been asking me about. I haven't really been very active about it on social media, and so when people find out, they're a little surprised. But actually a year ago I moved from New York to LA, and so I still have my office running in New York. I have an excellent team that I absolutely adore. But now I live in LA County to be exact, not necessarily. I'm about 20 miles from downtown LA. The area I live in, it's called Walnut. It's very east of LA County, but that's where I live. And so anyway, people ask me, whoa, what happened? Why did you move to LA, right? You know, I definitely didn't move because I was miserable or anything like that. In fact, you know, my love affair with New York goes way back, and my love affair with Flushing, Flushing, Queens, where my office there is, started in 2008. And since then I knew I wanted to have an office there, and I was able to make that happen in 2014. So in New York, look, it was me and my wife, and we lived comfortably, and we lived in a nice place. I loved our condo. It was walking distance to work. There's all kinds of food. You know, if you've been to Queens, if you take the 7 train, that's United Nations right there, right? I mean, the last stop is Main Street, where we're at, so that's Chinatown and Koreatown, right? Some of the best Chinese food and Korean food in the country. You take it, you keep going towards the city, and you go all through South and Central America, and then 74th, it's like Little India. It's just amazing, right? So you've got excitement, you have things to do. You know, you have food, you have your clients, you have your practice, you live walking distance from work, everything's good, convenient, you've got your car, you've got a private garage there, so you don't have to worry about shoveling snow. You can take weekend trips with your car. It was a nice life. It was a good life. So why the heck would you disrupt that? So today I'm going to talk a little about it. And it's not because New York is bad. I love New York, and I loved my time there. And of course, after this whole thing is over, I'm going to resume going back still pretty often, because I have a team there, and I'm very passionate about the practice we have there. But so why did we start thinking about this, right? Well, first it was family. Right, we started thinking about it because of family. We are not originally from New York. Right now, our family is scattered across the United States. We're immigrants from Brazil. I came when I was 7. My wife came when she was 14, and you know, that's been how the American dream has been for us. And so we have family on the East Coast. My wife and I met each other in Florida way back when, over 20 years ago. And we still have family on the East Coast, specifically in Florida, some other parts. And her family is mostly in the West Coast now. They've been there for a long time. And so we got to live with my parents, or close to my parents, a few years back when we went to Orlando. And so I actually opened an office over there. But we haven't lived anywhere close to her family for, you know, a decade and a half. Right, and so, you know, her sister's out there, you know, or here now. Her sister is in Vegas, and her brother is about 45 minutes from us in Huntington Beach, and her mom is in Vegas as well. And so it's like, wow, you know, so family was something we wanted to try. And at that point, we had kind of started to say, hey, it's time for us to, you know, make an addition to the family. And so her brother and her sister, they each have 3 kids. So right now, you know, right there by default, it's 6 kids that my kid could play with, you know. And that's something I didn't quite grow up with. I came here when I was 7 years old, and all of my cousins pretty much are in Brazil. I've got a few on the West Coast, in Utah, I think, Virginia. I haven't done a great job of keeping in touch. That's something I have to do. But yeah, since I didn't have that growing up, that's something I really wanted to give my kid. You know, I know the value of it, growing up around your cousins and your family, and you get, you know, birthdays and all of that stuff. I could just picture a certain life for my kid. And not that I had a bad life, it was great. I had a great upbringing, but I wanted to give him that kind of family life. And it was tough because knowing that if I went to California, my parents in Florida would be far from us, or be further from us. At least to New York, it's a 2-hour flight. To California, it's a 6-hour flight. So know, those were things that kind of weighed against it. But we started thinking about it because of family. Reason number two that we started thinking about it was, as some of you know, I love the Chinese culture and the language, and I have a practice that has a good percentage of my clients being from the People's Republic of China. 中华人民共和国，我们有很多客户会讲国语。So yeah, I have a Mandarin speaking channel. You can hear all my crappy Mandarin over there. Here's the link. So yes, me being fascinated with the Chinese culture, and I have Chinese clients, and I began to get to know, obviously, not only the Chinatowns in New York, but I realized that there was a big, a very almost intimate connection with the Chinatowns in California. Right? And so then I started to explore, and I said, California, that's pretty cool. I love San Francisco, right? Oh, that weather's amazing. In the summer, I went over there and I felt this wonderful, cool breeze, and I said, man, I could live here. Back when I went, the prices weren't ridiculous like they are now, but then again, I came from New York, so whatever. But then I said, the Chinese population in San Francisco is growing. It's really comprised a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth generation Chinese. You do have a growing population, but through my research and through my visits to LA, I found this amazing enclave of Chinese communities. And so this was kind of like how I found Flushing in New York. I took an assignment to interpret for these school principals who had gotten a scholarship to come to America and to study the American educational system. They were all from Brazil. And we stayed in Queens. We stayed right off of Northern Boulevard in Flushing, if you know where that is. And at the time, it was called the Marco Polo Hotel. And at night, you can't really tell, that part of the city where I was at, you can't really tell as a Chinatown. It was kind of like hidden. And I remember talking to the receptionist, and he was from Shanghai, and then he said, well, I was talking to him in Chinese, and then I asked him, hey, is there any good Chinese food around here? And he goes, hey, are you kidding me? I'm like, why am I kidding you? He goes, go to Main Street and take a left. Whoa, right? I mean, I just fell in love with it. Are you kidding me? Of course I knew New York, Chinatown, and Manhattan, but I never knew Flushing. I never even heard of it. And it is amazing. Flushing is incredible. You have, Chinese people from all over, every part of China. They bring their food, they bring their culture. It's just such a diverse place. You immediately feel the energy when you're there. So that's how I reacted when I found the San Gabriel Valley in the greater Los Angeles area. So most people know the Chinatown in LA, and Jackie Chan was there in Rush Hour, and a lot of movies feature that over there. And I had been there. It's kind of cool. Very Cantonese influence. A little small, I thought, actually, from my visits over there. But when I found this San Gabriel Valley, I was amazed. If you take Valley Boulevard from Alhambra, which is very west, kind of close to East LA, and you keep driving miles and miles and miles, and it's Valley Boulevard. To the south you have Garvey, to the north you have Huntington, and of course Main Street. It's really incredible. I was blown away by it, right? And so I began to explore this community, and I started getting to know people, and I realized I knew people here, like from my contacts in New York, from some contacts I had in other parts of China. I made some friends here, and I said, I think that I would really like to have an office here one day. And so even before I thought of actually moving here, I knew that I wanted to have a presence here, right? Because one of my dreams is to have a national practice, which is really what we've been building these past few years. And so I want clients, when they come over from whatever part of the world, China, Brazil, any other country, when they think of immigration, they think of us. And immigration is federal, and so we can practice in all 50 states. And so it really doesn't matter where you live, as long as you're licensed in one state, and I'm licensed in New York, right? So yeah, that was a dream I had, to kind of unite my practice and to get that synergy going with two cities and two major Chinatowns in America. All right, so number three, the third reason why we started thinking about moving to California, this one's kind of obvious. It's the weather. Now, yes, I love the change of seasons. I actually really enjoy it. My wife had a harder time with the winter, but you know, even if you love it and you enjoy it, you have a hard time with the winter, right? Whereas in California, it's sunny most days, you know, especially here in Southern California, weather's very pleasant, and I'm not a big humidity guy. And so I was raised in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and the summers there were brutal because it's very, very humid. And New York wasn't much better. New York was less humid than Florida, but in New York, you're walking everywhere, you're going up and down the subway stairs, and it can get really hot, right? And so what I love about California is it's, even in the summer, it does get hot. Like right now, we're in May and it's like, you know, 85 degrees, so it's a little warm, right? But it's not that humid, so you can walk around, you're not, you know, sweating like a pig. And at night, it's actually really nice. Regardless of how hot the day was, nighttime will be cool, right? So you will get relief at night. Whereas, you know, in Florida, like when it's really hot, it's you go outside at night and you're like, oh, let me go back in the house, right? It's still hot, it's still pretty humid, right? And by the way, I love these places. I'm not bashing on them or anything, but you know, weather is important. It does affect your mood, right? And so if it's really cold and you know, you have to shovel snow or whatever, you might get in a bad mood. Or, you know, if it's really hot and you're sweating like a pig and, you know, you're just really frustrated about that, it kind of affects your mood a little bit. So weather definitely was, yeah, a big reason for coming out here, sure. All right, number 4. Why did we move to California? Or why were we thinking of moving to California? Pace of life. Again, New York is very, very exciting. It's go, go, go all the time, right? And you know, you're on your toes, and it keeps you at your best, you know, at your competitive best. That is for sure. However, you know, you start thinking about, wow, you know, when I have a kid, how's it going to be? And for the longest time, I honestly thought I was going to raise my kid in New York. We're going to have a kid, he's going to be a New Yorker, we're going to raise him here, because it's a great place. It's very diverse, very international. I mean, there's so many opportunities, things to do. It's exciting. So it was cool. But you know, after we started thinking about coming to California, the pace of life was something that, you know, attracted us. We figured it might be something that would be good, and it would be nice to kind of relax. And I would still, you know, go back and forth to New York anyway, but we would enjoy a slower pace of life. Number 5. Why did we decide to come to California? We wanted a new challenge. And so people tell us, oh, you know, I can't understand why you did it. You had your practice, you had, you know, your nice condo, you have your community, you have food, you live walking distance, you have your indoor garage, right? I mean, why did you leave all of that, right? If it works, don't fix it, right? If it works, don't fix it. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking like that. But every once in a while, folks, we have to kind of create a storm for ourselves, a self-created storm, so that we can challenge ourselves. And from that storm, you will give yourself an enormous opportunity to grow. So that's what it was, really. You know, I mean, we had a good life in New York. It was great, but I think the possibility of another challenge, right? We spent New York City. We're there about 6 years, maybe a little less than 6 years. So, you know, we put in our time. We got to know the community. We grew our practice. We made friends. But I think it's really important every once in a while. It doesn't mean you have to move to the other side of the country, but you have to challenge yourself on occasion. You have to give yourself these scary goals to drive you. Right? And as you're going through the motions of reaching that goal, it does something special to you, and you grow tremendously from it. So that was definitely a compelling reason to try and move to California. So when did we actually make the decision, right? Because that's a very interesting process, and it's extremely important that you're able to go from simply desiring it to actually deciding that you're going to go after it, right? And it's a very scary step, because it's fun to dream, but it's not fun to put it down on paper and put your Herbie Hancock on the paper. Anybody seen Chris Farley? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's a very important process for us to go from simply desiring something to actually pursuing it. And so when did we actually say, we're doing this, we're moving to California? All right. In April 2016, I joined this organization that provided consulting services for lawyers who wanted to optimize their businesses. If any of you have been in law school or you know somebody that went to law school, they do not teach you how to run a business in law school. And so it's great if you're going to work for somebody, but if you ever want to have your own practice, you're being set up for failure, right? And you really need to spend a lot of time and getting that kind of education, getting that kind of training. And so that's what that was. And so that first conference, they had conferences in different parts of the country, which I thought was cool. We got to see different cities. But that conference in April 2016, it was in Palm Springs, California. So about an hour and a half from LA, 2 hours, depending on traffic. And we got pretty excited because we had been talking about California before. We found out, we signed up for the program, found out that the conference was going to be in California, and we said, let's definitely use this opportunity to do some exploring, And we went. Of course, we had a great conference. First of all, the conference was really the first time that we realized just how important your mindset is to not only grow in your business, but growing professionally, personally, and financially. And they had us read this book, and I'm going to share chapters of this book with you guys, and you'll find it annoying, but those of you that like it, I think you're going to get a lot from it. The book is called U Squared, like the little 2, mathematical 2, U Squared. In other words, how you can grow exponentially, right? And they made us read that book before going to the conference. It's a very short book, but extremely powerful messages about just taking action and not worrying so much about the how, and just going for it and keeping that vision in your mind and taking quantum leaps where other people don't necessarily think it's possible, and that you have to follow a certain sequence or certain number of steps before you get to a certain level, right? And so I think that conference, plus us being in California, it really put us in the right mind state to really take in what we were absorbing, right? And so we'd go places, we were checking out, the real estate market, checking out how the schools were there, right? Because, hey, we're going to have a little one, and what's the client market like, right? I'm probably going to have, a lot of Chinese clients there, so what are the different Chinatowns, San Gabriel versus Roland Heights, versus Irvine, and it was just really, really interesting. So yeah, after the conference, we spent a few days in LA and just exploring that and just dreaming, and based on all the reasons I just told you guys before, we kind of looked at each other and like, it feels good, it feels right, let's go for it. But it's so scary, right? So we kept that to ourselves for a while, but at least with family and friends. But we had this coaching program, and our personal coach, he was wonderful, and we told him, we're like, this is what we want to do. And he says, okay, well, you guys have a growing practice, and that's great. There's going to be some sacrifices involved, but if that's what you want to do, then we're going to get you there. And so we started building the kind of practice that we would need to allow me to be able to work remotely from California. And so the business in New York not only survives, but thrives, right? And we made a goal of 6 months, but it actually took 2 years, right? So we continued building the kind of practice that I would need. For the longest time, I was the only attorney, and I didn't really see the need to hire certain positions if we can just take care of it ourselves. But we found that we needed to build a practice. We needed to build a business that could move for the most part without us. And of course, we're still an integral part of it, but the day-to-day operations could no longer depend on me or my wife being present in the office or in New York City. So we began hiring. We hired our first attorney, and there was turnover, and so we got another attorney. But that experience was a growing experience for us to go to that next level, to hire the next attorney, to make those additional hires, and to believe. And as you're doing it and you see your structure expanding, it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. And so we were growing in a way that we had never grown before because we had that goal in mind, right? We're going to build the kind of practice that we need so we can work remotely. And so it started to happen, but we hadn't sealed the deal yet. And sealing the deal is actually uttering the words to your social circle, right? We told our coach, and we kept it secret. You know, we didn't tell our staff, we didn't tell anybody, none of our friends. And one of our trips in California, I told my wife, look, I think it's time we tell them. She's like, no, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna do this, right? So let's treat it seriously, as if we're actually gonna do this. You know, because there's power in actually uttering your goal, right? Once you do that, then you're on the hook, and people can hold you accountable. And that's what you might not necessarily like, but that's the way it goes. So we told them, and yeah, I mean, people were just really surprised, and they were happy and kind of shocked, and we couldn't believe that we said it. But there's a power in uttering these words. What's his name? The UFC fighter. What's his name? The UFC fighter, Conor McGregor. He is really big at uttering promises to yourself, right? I think it was before he fought Jose Aldo. He uttered and he said and he pictured that he was gonna knock him out in a few seconds, and he pictured the right hook that he was gonna give him. And when it happened, he just, it showed him, like, watching this video over and over, and he's like, I can't believe this happened. This is what happens when you trigger the power of uttering your words.
But all of a sudden, he will be in danger. How do you do that? How do you predict these?
If you can see it here, and you have the courage enough to speak it, it will happen. So I see these shots, I see these sequences, and I don't shy away from them. A lot of times people believe in certain things, but they keep to themselves. They don't put it out there. If you truly believe in it, if you become vocal with it, you are creating that law of attraction, and it will become reality.
And so we did it. We uttered the words to the family, and now it's official. Now we're on the hook, right? Because, I mean, before then we had just told our coach. So, if it didn't happen, then, whatever, our coach is kind of disappointed, but no big deal. But after we told our family, then we told our staff, things definitely felt a lot different. And so we continued building the system, and for the first time we actually hired a managing attorney. After we told the staff, we said, we got a very experienced attorney, and this is going to be the managing attorney, and I'm going to slowly kind of remove myself physically from the office. And so, wow, we hired the attorney, and now it's going to happen, because this is what we hired the managing attorney for. We had another attorney as well. Wow, I guess we have to do this. And once you're about to pull that trigger, or once you're in the position where you have to pull the trigger, you already put yourself in the position, your mind starts to play tricks on you, and you start experiencing these very famous fear and doubts. And you start questioning yourself. You start asking, oh, but how am I gonna do this, right? And I don't know anybody that's ever done this before. And what am I thinking? And am I gonna be able to really keep my practice alive? And will my clients be okay with this? Will the firm implode after I leave? Am I gonna like it out there? What if I don't like it? What if I don't succeed? What if I can't really get things going there with an office there? And you start to doubt yourself left and right. Our brains are really funny creatures, because our brains do everything in their power, and they're very powerful organs, do everything in their power to keep us safe. But what's safety? Well, for the brain, safety is familiarity. So this is why people stay in abusive relationships. This is why they stay in jobs they don't like. This is why they stay in situations that make them miserable, right? It's not because they like being tortured, but because they're afraid of change. And every time they approach wanting to make a change, the brain, right, your worst enemy in these moments, your brain starts to tell you all these things about yourself, right? And are you sure you want to do this? Because the brain's job is not to make you happy. It's your job to make you happy. But a lot of times making you happy will require you to make that leap of faith. And so fear, it's there. and doubts are there, and you need to listen to it somewhat. I mean, you need to be aware of potential pitfalls, of course. Don't be reckless, but you definitely can't ignore pitfalls. You can't ignore danger. You just can't make that your obsession, right? Because if that's all you think about, then you're going to sabotage yourself. You have to think of ways where this is actually going to work out, and eventually it does. And then when you pull the trigger, when you finally tell yourself, we're doing this, you get those motions going, something else starts to happen. People in your social circle start to give you advice, and they mean well. Most people in your social circle like you. They want the best for you. But then again, just like your brain interprets safety as familiarity, well, so do they, right? And so you're talking family and friends. People will come up to you and they're truly scared for you. If you're really going to go out into that new horizon, you're really going to try something that's very new. Once they see you trying something that is unknown to them, or that just seems really scary, it seems like you're really giving up a good thing that you have right now, even though that good thing either doesn't make you happy or it no longer challenges you. You're looking for another challenge. You're looking for another opportunity to grow, right? And they mean well, and they want to protect you, and they want to see you safe. But that's where your strength, that's where your grit, that's where your determination is going to be tested, because very few people can actually go against the advice of their friends or family members. Now, you're going to have some that are going to be on board. You're going to have some that are going to support your dreams. They're going to be right with you. Oh, yeah, keep me posted. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Hold on to those people. All right? I'm not saying the other people are bad. I'm not saying the other people are bad. In fact, they care about you. And the way they interpret life and your situation and what you're about to do and what you could possibly lose out on, they care about you and they're trying to protect you. But definitely hold on to the people that will support your dream. You're going to need those people. And so the sad reality is that most people will end up listening to that kind of talk. If they hear it once, sometimes it's enough for somebody. 2 or 3 times, or you get those funny looks where people are like, oh yeah, and you kind of see they're hesitating, they're scared, and a lot of people just can't handle that. And so of course I experienced that, and I had people literally, you know, sit me down and say, are you sure you want to do this? I don't think you should do this. You have a practice that's thriving, you have a good life, you are going to separate yourself from a business that really has given you everything you have, and it's frankly irresponsible. Well, I mean, what are you going to say to that, right? Well, here's what I said to it. I think that the risk of not doing it is greater than the risk of doing it. So just keep going. If it's a dream that's in your heart already, it's something you're crazy about, it's something you've obsessed about, you already got everything in motion, just keep going. And listen, don't be intimidated, don't be uncomfortable, don't even feel like you have to apologize if people around you are questioning what you're going to do. And here's something I heard once. I think it was from Steve Harvey. Believe it or not, he's one of my favorite motivational speakers. And he says that if everyone around you agrees with what you're doing, you are not dreaming big enough. So when you dream big, folks, and you actually take steps to make those things happen, it makes people, one, uncomfortable for you because they think it's going to be dangerous for you, or two, unfortunately you have people that become uncomfortable at the possibility of you actually doing it because they will be further frustrated by the shortcomings that they haven't been able to address. So that's what's going on, and you have to have the fortitude to just keep going. And the fun part about dreaming is the visualization, right? That's really the drive that gets you there. That's the drive that gets you through the adversity and, you know, through the talks, you know, from the social circle, everything like that. Just visualizing the kind of life that you want for yourself. And so when we were visualizing California, I would visualize my kid, who's now, you know, we knew we were going to have a boy. He's my son. He's a year old now, or almost, in a couple of months. But I visualized that life for him, just him here, and I visualized like us, getting a house with a pool and him playing in the pool and him just being here. I visualized us living in California, the slower pace of life, the palm trees. I visualized the kind of law practice that I wanted to build here. My first office, I already knew the neighborhood, I already knew what the office buildings looked like. I had already looked at some listings, and so I kind of pictured, I visualized exactly what I wanted. And I even visualized the new car that I wanted. For the longest time, ever since I started driving, I drove either Honda Civics or Toyota Corollas. I had a few other things, and they were wonderful, absolutely wonderful cars. But then when I started thinking about coming over here, my wife actually wanted me to upgrade to an SUV. And I was looking at SUVs, and then I said, what the heck? I see these BMWs, I see these Mercedes and these Volvos, and what's the big deal? And I started actually looking at these car reviews, and I got really motivated. And it just looked like a lot of fun. And I told myself, you know what? Life is short, and we work our butts off. Why can't we enjoy something like that? How much more is it? Is it 10 times what I'm paying for my car? And the answer was no. It was not 10 times. So if you work and you make a goal and it's not something that's going to kill you financially, why not? And so I pictured those things. I pictured us driving around in a BMW X3 SUV with my kid, my wife, and the palm trees and the life and the office and the clients and the community that we're going to get to know, as well as the wonderful restaurants that they have here. And it became an obsession. And that is what was able to really drive us, through the adversity, through the hard times. When you're on the fence about whether or not you should do it, here's a test that you should do. It's called the deathbed test. If you're on your deathbed, are you going to regret not doing it? All right? If you're on your deathbed, surrounded by your family, and you think about this thing that you wanted to do, but you didn't do it, is that going to be one of your big regrets? And if it is, well, you should strongly consider doing it, my friend, because I don't know what's going to happen in a life after. There's theories, and we're taught certain things in Sunday school, but I don't know. But what I do know is this life right now on this planet, this is the only shot. What happens later, I don't know. When we get there, we'll address it and we'll do our best and we'll have fun. But right now, this is our only shot. And so life is short. I don't know how long my life is going to last. And so it's too short to just be afraid and to remain in my comfort zone and not pursuing something that's in my heart that I know it's going to be awesome for my family. And here's another thing that gets in the way, right? The word how. The word how is an enemy when it comes to goal setting and execution, because this is something you ask yourself when you're trying to sabotage yourself. This is something other people ask you when they're trying to plant little doubts, when they're questioning, when they're concerned, or when they're uncomfortable about the possibility of you actually reaching your goal. They ask, or you ask yourself, how are you going to do it? And unless you've done it before, you can't really answer that question, can you? And so it gets you every time. It gets you every time because you don't know exactly how you're going to do it, how to go from that point A to point B. You've never been to B, but you dream about it, you want to get there. And so because you're unable to answer exactly how, if you're trying to sabotage yourself, your brain will tell you, aha, see, you don't know how to do it. Who are you kidding here? You don't know anybody that's done it. You have no idea how to do it. You're gonna fail. And if it's somebody else that asks you and you kind of stutter and I don't really know, they're like, wow, see, you don't even know how you're gonna do it. Come on, are you crazy? What are you thinking? So the word how can be your biggest enemy. And I've learned that when you have an amazing thought and you decide that you're gonna go after that dream and you put forth positive and aggressive action towards it. Of course, with the plan, you have to plan. You do your research and you plan, but perfection is the enemy of good. Some people, they plan forever and they never actually execute. So don't be that person, right? Plan to the extent where all your bases are covered, it's responsible, but then you are not going to know how it's going to unfold until you actually embark on the adventure. That's when it starts to unfold for you. So the how will unfold after you start to execute aggressively and with faith. One of my favorite motivational speakers is Les Brown. He's the one that has the famous speech, I'm hungry, right? I'll show you that one of these days. But Les is famous for saying that how is none of your business. Watch this clip.
So how do we do that? What is it that blocks us? Well, I mentioned one. Mine was fear. Here's another one. I didn't feel good enough. I was comparing myself to other people. I didn't feel, because I didn't have a college education, and based upon my failures and disappointments in the past and things that I'd attempted to do and they did not work out, I built a very practical, realistic, logical case on why I couldn't have my dream. And so I want whatever dream you have, I want you to expand it, I want you to increase it, and I want to warn you, don't ask yourself how you're going to do it. How is none of your business.
And so we had decided that we're going to pursue it despite not knowing how exactly we were going to get there. But we had a plan, right? We knew we needed a house, and we knew we needed office space, and we knew we needed a car, and so we got all those things. And I started making more and more trips here so I could start planning it out, right? As you're visualizing, you're making it happen, you're looking at real estate, you're looking at offices. It goes way beyond just thinking about it. Now all of a sudden, wow, you got a realtor involved, and now you kind of have to make something happen, right? You're telling people here that you're going to come. Oh, now they're waiting for you, and now they're getting things set up for you. And then finally it came time for us to pull the trigger, and man, it was hard. You know, we had everything lined up. We had the practice that we needed, we had the structure, we had the managing attorney, everything was there, but it was really scary because our New York practice was our only source of income at that time. And we're going to move to the other side of the country and expect this thing to keep running, not only to pay the bills, but to give us enough profit to now pay the extra expenses that we've incurred as a result of our move to the other side of the country. And so then we really started to get nervous and doubt ourselves, and oh no, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And by then my wife was 6 months pregnant, and then I said, look, if we don't go now, we are never going to go. Because then you're going to have the kid, and then you're not going to move with an infant, a newly born. You're not going to move with him to California. We're going to stay and take care of it. It's not good for the baby. Then you're looking at 2-3 years, which is usually never, right? Then life gets in the way, and that's it. That is another shattered dream that you can add to your resume. I mean, it's sad, right? But it happens. And so I said, we're going. Let's just go. We got the car. Yay, yeah, we got it. We got the BMW X3. I love it. I'm not a show-off by any chance. I am sharing this for anybody that was where I was at maybe 2-3 years ago, and that dreams of going to the next level. That's all it is. It's about challenging yourself and giving yourself new experiences. And I grew up admiring people that drove BMWs, and you think about it, it's so silly, but it does represent something. So we had everything. The practice was ready. We had the car. We had already started looking at houses and office space here even before we got here. And then here's the other thing. People say, why in the world would you move and already start looking for office space? Well, again, it's one of those storms that you create for yourself, right? It would have been a lot easier for my wife, who was 6 months pregnant, to come here and not have to worry about finding office space. But I like to keep things interesting, and so that's what we did. And so we got here and we spent, I think, the first 2 weeks in a hotel, and we actually found the office space before we were able to find a house, because we wanted a house with at least 4 bedrooms. We wanted to have a pool. I wanted to experience that California lifestyle, and so that really limited our choices, and it took us a while to find it, and my wife was very frustrated, yeah, and so was I, but everything worked out. And after we found the house and we signed the papers, this is kind of cheesy, but I'm going to share it with you. When I was taking a shower in the hotel, I actually cried in the shower. Oh, okay, there you go. I admitted. All right, I cried. And why did I cry? Because we were able to find the house that I had visualized. I had visualized the house with at least 4 bedrooms. We got a 5-bedroom. I pictured a pool as a pool. I pictured a nice neighborhood on the hills with a nice view like the one you see in the back. When I saw the house, I couldn't believe it. It was truly, literally the house of my dreams. It was the kind of place that I envisioned for my family. The office, exactly the kind of neighborhood, exactly the kind of buildings I had been looking at. In fact, this one office, I had my eyes on it for a while. We got the office space. And we kind of went big a little bit. We could have gotten a smaller space, but I said, no, we're expanding. Let's do it the right way. We have a good relationship. We have a good reputation in New York. Let's do it the right way. Let's do it confidently. We can do this, right? And I definitely don't regret it. And folks, I think the bigger the dream, the more challenges and adversity you have to face in order to show the universe that you deserve it, in order to show the universe that you really deserve a shot at getting that. And I don't know why, but that's the way it always goes. Oprah Winfrey said, if you knew how hard it was going to be, you wouldn't do it. And so I think that's why we're not clairvoyant, because if we knew exactly what we would face en route to getting to that goal, we wouldn't do it. Wow, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Was I expecting it to be easy? No, I knew it was going to be hard. I knew. But of course, I didn't know how hard it was going to be. Wow, at my office, just the managing attorney, we had problems, and one of the attorneys quit because of that. And literally quit while we were driving to California, okay? And it just became a mess, and it was a mess for the next few months. And then on top of that, I opened an office here. Now I have clients, I have paralegals, and I hired an attorney, and I even went to urgent care. Had a little chest pain. He said that's stress. It's all good. But it was very, very hard, And then having the kid, and having to take care of him and love him at the same time with all the stress that's going on. Thank goodness for my mother-in-law. Thank you so much for the help that she gave and continues to give to us. In short, it was clearly the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also one of the most gratifying things I've ever done. Because now, looking back, looking at the life I have right now, I think it's almost a crime for me not to have done it, okay? I enjoy the lifestyle we have here. I enjoy the house. I enjoy seeing my kid grow up here. I enjoy seeing my wife and my mother-in-law and the friends we're making. I love it. I love the office that we have here. We have a really cool team here in LA, okay? And the clients that we have and the community that embraced us. And those of you that know me, I'm also a political activist. I believe in Chinese human rights, and I believe in one day seeing democracy in China. I am absolutely against the tyranny perpetuated by the Chinese Communist Party against its citizens. There's all kinds of human rights abuses that I think are absolutely unacceptable. And so a big part of our practice is actually getting political asylum for people that are a victim of that kind of persecution. And I met these dissidents over here, and I started going to events with them, and they build a great relationship with my office, and some of them, the ones that are recently arrived, we help them with their cases, and they love us so much. Like they have meetings in my office. And so if I hadn't gotten that big office space, I would not be able to fit 30 people in there to have these Chinese dissident meetings. I love it, and I wouldn't know this community, and I wouldn't have tried these awesome restaurants, and there's so much that I would be missing out on if I hadn't done it. I'm so happy I did it. Speaking of the Chinese dissidents, so I told you that there's great synergy between New York and LA Chinatowns. And so a lot of my clients in LA, they know people in New York and vice versa, and they refer people. And they say, next time you're in New York, my cousin wants to treat you out to dinner, right? Things like that. And so these Chinese dissidents, they have very strong presence in both New York and LA. And I knew them in New York, and I built a great relationship with them in LA. It was, I want to say late last year, they asked me to go with them to Washington, D.C. for us to meet some congressmen, for us to talk about some Chinese human rights issues, some atrocities, some problems happening in Hong Kong, a human rights bill that was going to be passed in order to pressure the Chinese government to stop infringing on the rights of Hong Kong citizens. I remember that I was able to see these dissidents and the leadership from all over the country. And finally, we met up in New York for a dinner. And it was so cool because I was really able to see everybody I knew. And I knew the New Yorkers, I knew everybody in LA, and it just felt like a really big family. And I can't picture my life without the life that I have here. And it's not to say that my life in New York was bad at all. It was a great life. But what I've done is I've added to my life. I've given myself the opportunity to experience a new chapter. And we did that by believing and by visualizing and going through it and not listening to anything that was inconsistent with our dreams and our goals. And here we are, and I'm just so grateful. And I just really hope that this in some way empower some of you to go after those dreams that you've been burying, right? You bury them because you stop believing, right? You stop being childlike. We need to be childlike. You know, kids believe and kids dream. And why do we stop doing that? Well, because life kicks our butt, but we have to kick back. This is our only shot here. And so, folks, remember this: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And again, that's from Napoleon Hill. And like I've said before, when you believe, when you have that faith, and then you couple it with aggressive action, going towards it, you know, I don't know what it is, but your brain and your soul creates a magnetic force, and you start attracting to yourself people, circumstances, and situations that you need in order to accomplish your goal. The how starts coming to you. And it's amazing. And so again, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I'm not getting paid by any of these books. I really hope that this message, if it can help just one person out there, go after their dreams no matter what. You've heard your whole life, you can't do this and you can't do that, but you still want to go for it. Please go for it. Please get in touch with me. I want to hear your story, and I want to be there to congratulate you when you finally do it. All right, folks? So stay strong, dream big, and I'll see you next time.